Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, November 21st, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about the United States House of Representatives election results. So, with roughly 8 remaining races on our map, we have a number of states that have pretty much pushed away the Democratic Party in terms of their House elections. States such as Minnesota and Utah and New Mexico and Iowa, states that were that had pretty significant pickups for the Democrats in 2018 in terms of large districts, Trump districts, that they did not get this time around. Iowa was probably one of the biggest, hurting areas for the Democratic Party. The current Republican leads in that district that's currently classified in gray by 0.01%. It's exceptionally close, but back in 2018, the Democrats carried 3 out of the 4 districts there. The Republicans look like, based on where they're leading and where they've already won, they've already flipped back 1 district. They're on track to carry 3 out of the 4 back again. So it's not just here. The House elections were not good for the Democratic Party. You really can't sugarcoat this. That's why we saw the discussion about whether or not Speaker Pelosi should remain Speaker Pelosi or whether or not she should go back to just being Representative Pelosi or Majority Leader Pelosi. The Democratic Party will get the majority, and at face value, that may seem very good, considering back in 2016, with the same exact House drawn map, the Democratic Party lost the House of Representatives. They weren't even in the 200s in terms of the numbers, but they were at 194. But if you look at the majority, look at the amount that they are over, the 218 for control number. I mean, even if they win all 8 remaining races, they still will have lost seats from 2018. They left 2018 with roughly 232 seats. Party flipping and vacancies made it hard to tabulate throughout the past 2 years, as it is in every Congress, but following 2018, the Democratic Party should have had 232 seats. And looking at 222 now, it may seem like a loss of only 10 seats, but there were so many possibilities for Democrats that many of them are probably really upset about. There's a reason why the Democratic Party discussed removing Nancy Pelosi, discussed, getting fundraising efforts away from just the DCCC because these methods clearly did not work. And whether you have to blame Donald Trump's overperformance, which you very well might be able to, you also have to realize that Republicans had an appeal to some of these House districts that the Democrats had in 2018, and that was not replicated this time. Look at the popular vote, 50.4% to 48.2%. That is a difference of 2.2%. That is narrower than the presidential election. The Republicans did better in the House elections. That is super significant. Let's take a look at our 2020 data in terms of who is expected to win the generic ballot. And the Democrats had 49.9% of the vote. Was that accurate? Yes. But the Republicans had 42.6% of the vote. Was that accurate? Not at all. That was outside the margin of error, and that was a significant uptick for the GOP. No matter how you cut this cake, it's always going to come out red because of the fact that the Republican Party did significantly better than expected, and I mean that in a very literal sense. So here's the 538 forecast for the 2020 House elections, and I'm not here to sugarcoat election results for any political party. Top of the ticket was very good for the Democratic Party. I will not deny the fact that Joe Biden flipped Arizona and Georgia, 2 states that hadn't gone to the Democrats in the entire 21st century. They flipped and won back the blue wall. Donald Trump may have done marginally better in Florida, but he lost pretty much everywhere around the country. So on the national, I guess you could say presidential level, the Democratic Party did well. I applaud them for that. I think that was a good election. But if it was attached to these down ballot races, you would have thought that they would have done significantly better than where they are today. They so far only have 1 net gain, the Democrats being 1 net gain in the United States Senate. The House of Representatives, they have a negative, net from these results. So let's talk about how likely was this situation. Did 538 or really anyone expect the Democrats to be at such a low point? And yes, I am going to use the 222 number as a reference because the Democrats are not leading in a single contested race right now, I believe. In a single contested race that is yet to be called, the Democratic Party has not taken the lead or hasn't been in the lead for quite some time. And I also do want to point out on this map that the Republican Party, not only are they doing well, meaning they're picking up seats, they absolutely solidified their base. They absolutely solidified it. But that's besides the point. We're going to talk about the likeliness of this situation, and then we will move on to the solidification of the Republican base. So Right now we're at 222. And if you look on the 538 2020 House forecast, this had a 1% chance of happening. A 1% chance of happening. It was equally as likely that the Democratic Party won 256 seats. Well, guess what? Guess what that 256 number tells me? Well, let's take a look at the New York Times toss-up column. Amongst these toss-up districts, the Republican Party is currently leading or has won every single one of them. That's 27 districts. Had the Democrats replicated that, that would have brought them all the way up to 249. Well, guess what? Amongst the seats in the Democratic Party they were expected to win narrowly. If you take all of those flips and allocate them to the Democratic Party, where does that put the Democrats? At an additional 7 seats. A total gain of 34 compared to the 2018 results, which puts them, compared to the, added on to the current numbers of 222 plus 34, which would give the Democrats 256 seats. It was equally as likely for that to happen as the current results, according to 538. Now, this may be a question as to whether or not 538's House forecast was really accurate, or whether or not the Republicans defied all expectations as they did 4 years ago. And I think the latter may actually be the case. 538 actually predicted Georgia correctly. They were accurate in every state except for 2 on the presidential level. So I don't think that people should be, saying 538 was exceptionally wrong. Now, the averages are something they need to take a look at, because they are supposed to adjust for inaccuracies in the polling data. But if everyone dropped the ball this election, everyone, Trafalgar Group, Quinnipiac, Washington Post, wherever you really look, you're not going to find a super accurate pollster that was consistent throughout the entire election season. And if you're looking at the House numbers, a lot of this was formulated based off fundraising numbers, based off 2018 and 2016 election data, based off expected percent vote share on the presidential level. I don't think it helped Democrats that they lost in traditionally Hispanic regions because of the fact that Joe Biden significantly underperformed. I'm looking at Florida down in the South. So when you're looking at this scenario, why is this such a shock? Well, first things first, not only does there lie only a 1% chance that this situation was to happen on the previous 2020 election forecast in the House, 80% of the outcomes fell in the range of at least 225 seats for the Democrats up to 254. 225 at a minimum, and the Democrats are looking at 222 at a maximum, really. I mean, yes, there could be something that overturns a singular district, but the major takeaway here is that the Republican Party ran it up. They may not have won the presidential election. They may have not won more seats in the United States Senate. But in the House of Representatives, this should not have gone this way. This should absolutely have not gone the way that it did. History defies this. The election data defies this. Look at the popular votes. Look at the popular vote. This hurts me. This hurts me personally because, this data was supposed to be corrected after 4 years and after 2018, which was an exemplary performance in terms of the polling data. Look at the margin. Look at the margin. 8.7%. Look at 2018. I think you can hear the pain in my voice because I look at this data all the time. It's supposed to be accurate. It's supposed to be right, and it has perfect elections and it has flukes. But it can't be a fluke, a presidential election after another presidential election. Look at the margin. Look at the difference between Nancy Pelosi's party and Paul Ryan's party. 53.4% to 44.8%. How much is dividing the two candidates? Roughly, 8.4%, I believe, or 8.6%. I mean, looking at these numbers, I can't do math, so 1 second. Okay, 8.6%. Look at the polling data. When we're looking at the generic ballot, an 8.7% margin versus the actual results being 8.6%, it was super accurate. And these are the same pollsters that did this election. So something obviously went wrong. And once they solidify the results, I'm going to start doing my analysis about what went actually wrong with a lot of these polls. But when you're looking at the election results and you're looking at the generic ballot, the Democrats were right on track. They received well within the margin of error of what they were expected to receive. But I could not see, personally, and many other pundits and many other people on both sides did not expect the Republican Party to win practically 100% of the undecided vote. We're talking a 90-10 split if this situation was to happen. A 90-10 split amongst independents, obviously, or undecided voters, which obviously would in a normal election seem like a blowout. But because the Republicans had a disadvantage due to Donald Trump, I mean, yes, if Donald Trump was, if this was a Hillary Clinton re-election bid, they probably would have been already holding on to the House and probably expanding seats. But, looking at the popular vote compared to the generic ballot, which was extremely accurate in 2018, it was just so far off this time. This is a 7.3% margin separating the Democrats and the Republicans. 7.3%. It ended up being 2.2%. That is a 5-point swing nationally. Things like that do not occur. This is not a random situation, and New York has votes outstanding, but it's not going to be enough to make any type of significant impact on the House votes here. I think this is just such an unfortunate situation for the Democrats, and an unfortunate situation for the polling firms that really dropped the ball on this one. Looking at the 2020 House forecast, I don't think anyone could have envisioned that this happened. And this is a situation that the Democratic Party is going to have to reflect on. Because in every presidential election history, almost every modern presidential election, 2016, in a year where Donald Trump defied all expectations and won Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, the Democrats gained 6 seats in the House of Representatives. May not seem like much, but it was able to push them up from where they were. In 2012, when Barack Obama was reelected, an 18 gain for the Democrats. In 2008, which is what a lot of Democrats were hoping to replicate, and if they did what the Republicans did, they absolutely would have. Coincidentally, they would only been 1 seat off from where they were in 2008, 21-seat gain. In 2004, the Republicans actually gained 3 seats, but this was on top of George W. Bush actually winning the popular vote, and it was only a narrow increase. The Democrats didn't suffer nearly as large of a loss as they did in this election. And in the year 2000, I believe the Republicans actually, I assume they gained seats because of the overwhelming switch of support in the South at this point, but I guess there was still that rollover amongst the Democrats. A 1-seat gain for the Democrats, obviously not a big deal, but still a gain nonetheless. Looking back, we're getting into different types of elections. 96, the Democrats gained seats. 92, when Clinton was elected, the Democrats lost seats. So actually, this was the point where they were heading off their 40-year reign on the United States House of Representatives. So we're not going to talk much about that. But in every election since 1996, except for one, the Democratic Party has gained seats in the House of Representatives. And I mean, this was really a very poor performance. Look at the seat change already. A 12-seat increase for the GOP, a 12-seat increase. They're already at 209, and according to the New York Times, they're at 205. So this is not even accounted for all of their significant losses. This is very unfortunate for the Democratic Party. They've lost 10 seats from 232 down to 222, and so far there remains 4 seats outstanding, and it looks like they're going to end up going to the GOP. So now that we've talked about what actually went wrong in terms of the polling data, we've talked about this. Let's talk about the party solidification. So let's ignore the Democrats expected to win easily races and all of the House races. We don't need to focus much on there. For the Republicans expected to win easily column, let's not focus on that either. There isn't anything significant. The Republicans and the Democrats all won by pretty significant margins. Actually, I just saw a D +6, so that was pretty close. But at the end of the day, still a victory for the Democrats. But amongst the Republicans expected to win narrowly column, look at how many victories they had. They won every single congressional district. Every single congressional district. The closest margin on this entire list is Republican +6 in Colorado's 3rd congressional district. The narrowest on the expected to win narrowly column for the GOP was Republican +6. Let's move over. Not only did the GOP, actually, before we move over, GOP solidify all of their safe races. They had some shocks in 2018. Oklahoma's 5th district was a perfect example of that. But amongst the Republicans expected to win narrowly, they ran it up. Closest race, +6. Won by large margins in a number of the other districts, double digits. California's 4th, Florida's 15th. Ran it up. But not just here. The party solidified at this point, but they also did so on the toss-up districts. Look at all of the toss-up districts. Republicans won or are leading in every single one. Every single congressional race in the toss-up column went to the GOP. You cannot draw this as a positive for the Democrats. You cannot. You can't find a way. And Nancy Pelosi, really likes to say that she won more votes. The House Democrats won more votes than even Donald Trump, which is true. But you cannot deny that there were some clear, mishaps. Stronger word than mishaps definitely needed, but I'm going to say that for right now. Mishaps on the toss-up level, on the, expansion level. The Democrats were poised to gain seats. In the likely scenarios, they were expected to gain seats. They were expected to gain roughly 6 seats. History was on their side. Only one election since 96 has this ever occurred. Only one election since 96 has this ever occurred. And now it's 2. In the toss-up districts, the Democrats really dropped the ball. Not only did the Republicans win all of the races, but they're on track to flip an additional one. They've already flipped, 4 races in this column? 5, 6 races in this column? I mean, the Republican Party did very well. And I think a lot of Democrats, while they may be happy on the presidential level, and rightfully so, they should be pretty worried about 2022. We are looking at a very, very interesting House result. And it may seem as if the Democrats could actually end up with one of the narrowest majorities we've seen in United States history. Now, the Democrats were expected to win this column narrowly, but as you can see, there's some red on it. The Democrats lost California's 48th, California's 39th, Florida 26 and 27. Like I said, southern House districts in Florida, very important to Democrats, huge Hispanic population, suddenly shifted in favor of the Republican Party. In Georgia's 7th district, the Democrats flipped that one. In North Carolina's 2nd and 6th, the Democrats flipped that one. But that didn't mean much. Looking at some of these races, they should have had 2 easy pickups in Texas. They didn't get either. They lost South Carolina's 1st district. Cunningham was a very strong candidate. He should not have lost that race. And if you're looking at these races, a lot of Democrats are going to start asking themselves, this was done under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi. And while she may have delivered an election defeat for Donald Trump, if she assumes to take credit of that just because of the impeachment, whatever it might be, they're going to say, is this the leadership they want moving forward? Is this where they want to be as they go through the next few elections? 2022 is poised to be a Republican wave year. Are they going to want Nancy Pelosi, someone who lost seats in a year that should have favored them overwhelmingly? I mean, if the Democrats really gained on their 2016 numbers, there's no reason as to why they should have lost seats. And yes, I understand they had a good majority back in 2018, but they did in 2006 and 2008 was a perfect representation of that. The majority can always be expanded. And if the Democrats had just done exactly what the Republicans did, because they did something very similar back in 2018 by winning almost all of the toss-up districts, they would have been exactly at where they were in 2008, except they were off by 1 seat. They would have been at 256. That wasn't out of the question. That was equally as likely as the scenario we're poised with today. So, all in all, the major takeaway is, yes, the polls overestimated Democratic support on the congressional level. But there is definitely that other question that Democrats are going to be asking themselves, is this the fault of Nancy Pelosi? Is this the fault of the DCCC? Is this the fault of Joe Biden? They're really going to be asking, how did they lose so many seats in the House of Representatives? This year should have been phenomenal for Democrats on the House level. Even if they lost the presidential level, I would not have been surprised if they gained seats in the House of Representatives. But obviously now, that simply is not the case. And can you imagine if Donald Trump had won the election? It's almost an absolute certainty that they would have won back, the Republicans would have won back the House of Representatives. So all in all, it looks as if the Democratic majority, which there is going to be one, is going to be very slim. It's going to be very close. There's going to be a lot more weight on singular representatives and their defective votes when they say that they're not going to vote with Speaker Pelosi, or they're not going to vote in favor of a certain thing unless something is added to it. The House of Representatives is going to be probably one of the most unproductive Congresses we've seen in such a long time, and that may actually be not too surprising to hear. But this slim majority is going to make things very difficult because there are Democrats still from conservative districts that have constituents who may be more right-leaning than a number of other Democrats, and they may still say, I can't vote for what you're proposing, Speaker Pelosi, or really Speaker, whichever Democrat ends up taking that position if it isn't Pelosi. Yes, they've renominated her, but it still needs to go to an official ballot. So all in all, these House Democrats should be pretty upset. Some of them narrowly won, really went off on Nancy Pelosi. And the question remains, will the Democratic Party see that as something that's rightfully deserved? Will they think that in the future they don't want Pelosi leading their party? And these House elections were not good for the Democrats. The Republicans solidified their bases, and they ran it up in the toss-up districts. And in fact, they peered into Democratic districts that the Democrats were expected to win narrowly. All in all, it just wasn't a good election for the Democrats on the House level. The presidential race, very good. The Senate level, not that good, but still gaining seats in the House. They so far have lost a net 10 seats in a year that should have favored them in the House, especially winning a higher portion of the popular vote than they did back in 2016 when they gained seats, despite Donald Trump's presidential victory. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all tomorrow.